Every kid at one point gets asked the same question. What do you want to be when you grow up? We often dismiss the answers, especially when they suggest the near impossible. But it's our legacies of what we do today that keep those dreams alive for a future to realize the impossible.
When I was in my final year of my Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology at the University of Regina, I ended up going on a student exchange over to Austria. And a couple of months into my stay there, I got a roommate who was from Bosnia. And it just kind of always stuck in my mind, and I got the idea that, well, maybe I could go and check it out. And I asked around with some friends if anybody wanted to go, and most were like, nope. But one girl who was actually studying journalism said, sure, I'll go. And so the two of us ended up on a bus, like 20 some hours to get down to Sarajevo. And we spent probably about 4 or 5 days there, and it completely changed my life. It showed me things that as a young Canadian I had never seen before. And just driving into the city, I remember we were seeing everything from buildings that had been bombed and were somewhat still standing, to the rubble, to mosques and minarets and beautiful old buildings, cathedrals, beautiful buildings from several hundred years ago, in amidst all of this destruction and chaos that had happened so recently. Just the experiences I had there and talking to people really got me out of myself and got me thinking about the world and the people in it. And I realized that whatever I ended up doing, I wanted to do something where I could have a positive impact on people's lives and maybe work for their health and well-being, and really I wanted to do something to pay back their kindness and to be a positive contributor to the world.
I grew up with a family that really believed in working with people who were left out of society. So we spent many of our years working at Wascana Rehab Center as volunteers. We did a lot of activities with the patients there, or the residents there, and it just seemed like the natural progression as to, taking those skills and taking them to a professional level. I liked working with people, and I thought that nursing had enough diversity in it that it gave me a chance to be who I wanted to be.
When I think about that moment, I think that moment happened before I even became an OR nurse. And I remember telling one of the other ward nurses that I was working with that I wanted to go work in the OR. And her response to me was, oh, well, I guess you won't be having much to do with the patients anymore then. You'll just be working with instruments and you won't be talking to the patients because they'll always be asleep. But as I was in the OR longer, I realized, you know what, we're there for that patient the whole time. When they're asleep, in fact, they're at their most vulnerable, and we're advocating for them every moment.
For me, it's the same as Alma. It came right down to a simple patient connection. And I connected with this little guy who'd had multiple surgeries with our pediatric neurosurgeon at the time, and the surgeon came to me after the little guy was asleep, and he's like, for all his surgeries, he has never, ever connected with anyone. He's like, you are the first person that he has calmed down for and just allowed to be a part of his world.
It's about the impact you have on other people, and you can have it in many different ways. Some people, they go out, they make a lot of money, they set up a charity, or they leave a building or something, whatever. That's fine, that's one form of legacy. Another form of legacy is just in your day-to-day actions with people and the way that you make them feel, or the things that you help them with, or the way that you are in their lives. But ultimately, a legacy is about your impact on other people. I think you can't have one without the other.
I would say that you need to enjoy what you're doing, to be engaged in your workplace, because that's the best way to make it a better place to be, and to keep learning and never be afraid to say, I need help.
To treat each patient the way you would want to be treated. It's kind of the golden rule, right? We always learn when we're young, but it applies here too. Just how would you want to be treated, and then treat that patient the same way.
I think just the fact that we interface with people on a daily basis as nurses is our legacy. We change them and we impact them with everything we do, everything we say it, how we approach them, how we apply what we know. And so it's partly responsibility, but it's also a huge privilege to be able to have that. And so embrace the privilege, take those chances that you need to take, that you feel comfortable with, and more importantly, understand that what you do and say has that ripple effect beyond that one event.
What's your legacy?
I guess one word that does come to mind for the OR is change. I've been here 30 years now, and it continues to change. So I hope that my legacy is that she was someone who could embrace change and learn from things and carry on, because change is going to happen, and hopefully evaluating the changes and making sure those changes are the best for the patient, not just change for the sake of change.
The other thing that I think that I've really focused on is that we have a responsibility to be there for other people, whether it's in our own country or abroad. And so I don't care where you decide to work with people who are in these vulnerable moments. And I'm starting to not use the word vulnerable, I'm starting to use populations with potential, because these are people who have just the right opportunity will give them the opportunity to move forward. So I think my legacy is that I will have opened the eyes of other people to these populations of potential.
I remember when we had a nurse that went to go work in pharmacy, and there was a doctor kind of lamenting her loss from the department, and he's like, she was one of the best scrub nurses I have ever worked with. And I remember thinking, I want that. I want someone to say that about me when I leave the OR.
If there were one phrase that really summed up my legacy, it would be helping to create a happier and healthier world, one person at a time. That is a nice way of leaving a legacy, is by you've had these experiences, you're now communicating them with others, and perhaps that will inspire them to go off and have their own experiences and to hopefully contribute and give back to community, whether it's here in Saskatchewan, elsewhere in the world, or both.
Life as we know it is defined by moments. Simple moments can leave behind extraordinary things. The moment a raindrop is formed sets forth cascading events, slowly building into puddles, then streams, then rivers, and constantly building something much larger, one drop at a time. What's your legacy?